Okay, now it's recording.
Alright, cool. We were talking about how when we used to go to Indian restaurants, we used to order the vindaloo as hot as possible.
Right, and laugh at the other person having trouble.
And basically, it wasn't really laughing at the other person having trouble. It's basically just the other person would get sweat beads on their head, and then it would just become a process of, oh, here you go. You're getting affected by it. It's time to go on a psychedelic trip out into the sand dunes.
Yeah, drink.
You've hit the oasis.
Drink the Reta. It'll help you.
Wasn't that waitress being really weird with the Reta tonight? That old lady? She's like,
Yeah.
You don't like Reta? You want Reta? I know. You don't Reta.
I think she was just a little freaked out or something.
We were freaking her out, man.
Yeah, you were
She
talking,
didn't know what to make of us.
you were talking kind of loud and, but
These foreigners, they don't understand American culture. Since we're the Ragas, we've got to make like ignorant foreign people conscious of like West Coast arrogance and egotism.
snobbery.
Jim, is egotism a word?
I think so. But we're like, Christian snob elite.
Yeah. We're total Christian psychedelic. We're not the other kind of psychedelic, which everybody else is, which is tattoos and piercings and buying your jeans with the rips already in them for $300 and dyeing your hair black and going around with eyeliner and having a nose ring.
It's kind of out. Let's see.
It's got to warm up to the room. That's what Harvey Gerst always said. He's like, half an hour before we start jamming, or an hour, 45 minutes, he was like, do you want to get out your guitars and let them acclimate to the room, get warmed up, and then the other thing about getting them warmed up is actually playing them. And I think this fun, this with Rickenbackers in particular, is that when you're playing them, you have to like get them warmed up, and then they seem like they kind of, even if they're out of alignment and they kind of are like prone to kind of going out of tune.
Mm-hmm.
If you have new strings and the proper weight strings on the guitar, like for instance on the 325 Byrd, I have the short scale strings, heavyweight strings for Rickenbacker. That's the proper weight. So anyway, basically, you're talking about just like warming up the guitar, and it's just like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think that.
No, it makes sense.
I think that like once you warm the guitar up, maybe it stays in tune better. Like as opposed to like just saying, okay, give me a guitar. I'm gonna use one guitar every other two songs, and I'm gonna switch guitars for the other two songs, and do like switch out guitars. And then you don't give the guitar a chance to get warmed up, Jim, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then every time you pick up the guitar, it's not warmed up, so it hasn't, but if you play the guitar throughout the whole set, it warms up, like you're totally warmed it up, and you're like, where you're at with it too. I think that, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong,
No,
maybe like,
that's right.
maybe, because it seems like if you have a bunch of guitars and you switch them all off, but if they're in really good condition, they're all warmed up and set up, then that's the way you want them,
Right.
So I guess if you have somebody doing that for you, warming them up for you backstage,
Guitar tuner,
keeping them more like sitting on them, like keeping the seat warm, but instead it's like musical chairs, but instead it's musical guitars.
The quarter after they opened up for Love, Arthur Lee.
Okay, where?
The Knitting Factory,
Just kidding.
and Rob called me. What did you say?
The Viper. It was a joke.
Okay.
Thank you.
But Rob asked me to help him with tuning.
Because of Chris Stills. I just think the Viper is hilarious place to play. I'm so glad we played at the Cricket Bar.
Yeah.
So what were you saying?
So Rob asked me to come and help them with tuning. So I was like the tuner guy backstage for.
I remember the story.
It was,
Jim was in his prime.
I was in my prime, and
you didn't have to get the budget rent-a-car.
No,
yet.
I think I was. This was after. This was after we had parted or whatever.
It was in the midst of 9/11 budget rent-a-car.
Right. Yeah. So, he said, "Oh, I'll get you in."
They put you to work on 9/11.
Yeah, 9/11. So that was
that was the
sign.
Injury.
That was the sign that told
me
that this is not good. That was
the injury they could have played on you. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I was saying, they wanted me to be a tuner for their band. This was Arthur Lee's first concert after he got out of prison or something, and so it was funny. It's loud and I took I guess Dominic's guitar and had the guitar tuner, but they're playing. And it's hard to tune it. So I went over to the side, was trying to tune it, and then I gave the guitar to what's his name?
Do you need a beer?
Not yet. What's the guy's name? The guy that played the guitar in the Brian Jonestown Massacre.
Frankie.
Frankie. I gave it to him, and he was trying. He couldn't get it, and so it was like the time for the song. I needed to bring the guitar out to him like immediately.
Yeah.
And so I was freaking because he needed to tune it to drop D or some crazy thing like that, the low note, and it just wouldn't register the needle. And so I brought it on stage and I whispered into Dom, "I didn't tune it."
What part?
Yeah.
What party?
and then the drummer Dave Koenig, remember him? He made a bad face at me because I'd ruined their whole thing. But no.
Hey, what I was gonna say was basically you can have your cake and eat it too if you just stay with the one guitar throughout the whole set.
I think
you
that's
have
good.
Somebody backstage doing it, but still, it seems like you can still have problems. Like if you're if everybody's shuffling around guitars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe no guitar gets warmed up. I don't know. Maybe I'm right.
Sounds pretty good.
It's amazing how similar it sounds to the 325 Bird.
Mm-hmm. Is this the one that you had Rob play, or?
Yep, Rob got to touch that one, and Roger played that one, and now you played that one. I didn't let Tim play that one, but Tim played that one.
Mm-hmm.
And Roger's played that one too. And of course Roger's played that one.
Which one does he like the best?
I mean, that one, right? It's Roger,
Right.
He just likes his RM12.
Yeah, sure.
He's the best because he has his own signature Rickenbacker. And the only way you do that is by getting a #1 hit or by being a pussy whipper like Suzanne.
Like what?
Hoff. You gotta be a
Suzanne
pussy
Hoff.
whipper. Yeah, the story goes is John Hall had this guy working for him whose girlfriend was Suzanne Hoff.
Oh yeah.
So that's the reason why.
She got in through him.
Because they played Walk Like an Egyptian. It was because she was putting out that she got the Rickenbacker.
Did she play Rickenbacker before that?
Or at least that's what I heard from the CEO of Rickenbacker. I don't know if that hurts anyone's feelings or not, but hopefully no one will hear that. We'll get mad.
Let's see. I wonder if I could tune and still record at the same time. No, I can't. So
just tune off the strings of the 620.
Well, I got it in good shape, so I wanted to see if it'll pick up now.
Yeah, we'll just do it.
Let's just
get down.
Yep. So now we're recording again. You got all.
All right. So we're gonna be getting some music going after about 10 years of talking back and forth on the internet.
From Bulgaria
and
here and
from Texas,
Bulgaria,
California, LA,
Portland, Oregon,
and now we're in Tucson, Arizona.
Right.
And Jim's on his way to LA, and
Yeah.
Henry's on his way to Northern California tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Or Saturday, or God knows when. but we're
So it's been a long time coming.
playing it by ear.
Which
Yeah.
is always
I
what
got
we
a
all.
time frame, so I got to get up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I have a friend up there, and he's ready to jam music. So I'm gonna be moving to Arcata, and Jim is on up the coast in Portland, and Arcata's just south of Portland. A hop, skip, and a jump, as it was when Jim lived in Hollywood, and I lived in Santa Ana working at Rickenbacker.
So I would fly down
Jim
there
would drive 3 to 6 hours
every weekend.
7 to 8 hours.
LA traffic.
Stuck in LA traffic.
That's dedicated musicians.
or driving Sunday night, buzzed from drinking beer, or perhaps maybe just NA beers.
Yeah.
Getting detoured on the way down, and that would take 3 hours out of the way. So,
And, coming straight from 3 clubs or
yeah.
Spaceland and
Right.
all those spots
All the spots out there in the world.
that are still there, but I don't know.
That are still there, but that don't deserve to be gone to. We have funner things to do with our time, like go to Bulgaria or go to Portland.
Yeah, we improve the world by doing our own thing.
In fact, going anywhere else in the world would be funner than going to the old Silver Lake scene, because we've adapted the old Cracker Barrel baseball hat motto. Been there, done that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just kidding.
It's pretty crisp.
Alright, tune the lower once again. Just do it. Do
Yeah.
it on E, A.
Yeah.
Just do it.
The low E kind of strange.
Alright, here's the 325 Bird.
Wow.
Roger McGuinn special, signed.
When did he sign it?
Alright, with a Aqua Sharpie.
What year was that?
Does that look surfer or what, dude? It looks
Yeah.
so surfy with the Aqua Sharpie. 1956. No, just kidding. It's 1966. Yeah, what?
Let's say when did he sign it? It was later on, right?
5 years ago? 7 years ago?
Yeah. So that's signed by a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame person.
Yes, it is. And I was living out of my van. I was all geared out. You know, I had my Levi's
Your
Sherpa.
Uh-huh.
You know, the fake cord Sherpa thing.
Right.
Brown.
Oh yeah.
Total Gene Clark gear. A Tattersall shirt, blue and light blue Tattersall.
Uh-huh.
LL Bean Oxford. Nice Garrison buckle belt.
Right.
Style. Like, you know, some nice gear pants like Levi's or something. Probably those high water green ones. I had these high water green polyester green Levi's that it stopped making. And I bought them in LA. And I got them cut high water. They look so psychedelic. They're like green jeans, but they're psychedelic, like 70s polyester.
Yeah.
I didn't like them because they weren't cotton. Nobody else liked them because they were cotton, but they had the look, you know. They were total 70s. And then the boots. And all the Beach and Sparks are basically, they're like, except for maybe Chris and Aaron.
Yeah.
But everybody else is
Where was this?
Spaceland. Just on some miscellaneous night, like maybe some of their friends were playing and I didn't know them or something. It was just some, random night. And so Brent and Darren came in, Brent and Dave came in, and I went up to them, and I had just seen that monkey photo of like him with the blacked out eye and holding monkey babies, We just sparked that black and white one. It's all like muted.
Right.
And I was up in Mendocino, I'd just been living out of my van, So I was just sort of like at my wit's end,
Right.
And so like, I kind of took all my frustrations out on Dave, but in this really weird passive-aggressive way, which was sort of like,
Dave?
Dave Shear. Like if you look at the picture, he's the one with the blacked out eye. So I started fucking with him, and I started acting like a monkey, and I started going like this, but I had all my gear on.
Yeah.
I mean, that could have been filming that.
What did he do? He just kind of
ignored
you?
And he was dressed like this. He was dressed like all 70s, like glam. He had like this like shirt open up like this, and it was like polyester, and it has
glitter and stuff.
It was like sparkly kind of, like polyester, and it, like the collars went up to here. Yeah. And he was wearing this like really effeminate silk scarf. It looked like he was like trying to look like David Bowie or something, in the '73 or something. It was like so awful, And so he was like all glammed out, and I was like, and then he looked at me like this, like, are you trying to do 65 style? Yeah. And I looked at him like, are you trying to do 73 glam style?
Yeah.
And then Brent said, because he saw me do this, I was like this far away from him or something, so I was kind of like breaking his face,
Yeah.
And I was drunk,
Yeah.
So I was like freaking out.
What did Brent do?
I was being hyper, And Brent was like, hey man, be cool.
Yeah.
Like trying to act like Roger or Peter Fonda in Easy Rider. And then that scene moved. This could be in the movie,
Yeah.
And then what happened was, so you have so many stories like this we probably haven't told each other, Just a little random. I do. I have a million things like this that I have with those guys. But so then, what happened was, I go up to Darren and Brent, and I like comparing them, because Brent is older, he should be taller, because he's the older brother, but he's shorter.
So you were saying
So I was like, hey, you're shorter than Darren. And so I was like, it must have been all those years of smoking pot. It stunted your growth.
Oh, yeah, that's what you said to him?
To Brent, and he was like, yeah. Like he agreed with me. Because he was like, how he's kind of cynical to be attitude. So then I was like, okay, whatever. The next one was the schmoozing with them again. Was when I was up on the stairs going into the upper bar, and Darren was kind of like coming down or something. We met, we were hanging out for a second, and we were talking, and I was like, well, yeah, I've been looking for people to get in a band with, but I've been also thinking about like a good name for a band, and I think a good name for a band would be Yoko Beach, like Cocoa Beach, and like Yoko Beach, because Yoko Ono, and then Beach and Sparks, kind of sort of like the Byrds, the Beatles.
You said that, or he said that?
I said that to Darren,
What did he say?
So he kind of took it all. He got all offended, and I didn't know why. And he's like, "I'm gonna go see my wife," and he just like huffed off. And then his wife, I found out later, she's like Asian.
Probably because she's Asian,
So he got all offended because it would be like me if I was like making something about a Bulgarian band. Let's call our band the Bulgarian Mood. Yeah. Or something stupid like that, and you got all mad at me. Right. You know, they're almost like looking for reasons to get huffy with me. Because I've been huffy with them before. No, it was like their turn to get mad, their turn to be arrogant with me because I had been putting off airs before with them.
Yeah.
You know how they wanted to
it's
make
it's such on edge,
reciprocal.
you know. It's on edge, you know, all the time with that scene, it seems.
That, yeah, they probably do it to each other. And also, I was like thinking, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, I put off the slightest bit of attitude, so they were just gonna not have any part of it. They're gonna just be like, be totally real in themselves, and they had every right to have attitude.
What was it about the time that you saw Beachwood Sparks in Tucson?
Yeah, that was a weird one. That was when that guy was here.
Which guy?
I was telling you that story just now about Henry.
That was in here, in Tucson.
And that was at Centennial Hall at U of A. And they were opening up for the Black Crowes.
Right.
And I saw them in the paper, I was like, oh, I have to go down. So I just went down there, I had the shit weed, so I was smoking my weed with them. And you know, they were like freaking out because Dave thought that I was smoking his weed. You know?
Oh yeah.
He had this good weed that
they almost
grown.
had a
so he was like,
fight over
he's
weed.
like, he smoked us out with his kind bud that he broke out. And then I broke out the shit weed. And I was like smoking the joint of that, yeah. And it was just funny that I kind of brought it to like make fun of them because the time before, like I went out on my way to get some extra weed because the time before, it's so funny. I was working at Rickenbacker and I went to see the Tide at the Knitting Factory. And you know how we used to smoke kind bud? Well, that kind bud we were getting was too strong for me.
Sure, it was way
It was fucking me up, you know, especially by myself. I didn't have anybody to bounce off of or anything, you know, so I was just like
freaking out.
Losing it. Yeah, I was going bonkers. So what I did was I ended up going to the grocery store and just buying some
peppermint something?
Peppermint. And organic peppermint from Whole Foods. I put it in the thing and I mixed it in with my thing and I was like, I don't know if this is good or not, but I've never heard of any. I've heard of people smoking peppermint before, so I guess couldn't kill you because they're still around to talk about it. So, you know, then I took the stuff to the backstage of the Tide show, and Darren was like, "Is it safe to smoke this stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah." So he smoked this big bowl of mint and pine bud, and got wrecked on it. And then I gave some to Darren, and we were smoking it, and he was like, "This is like smoking a Virginia Slim." There's so many crazy little stories I have like that.
What was the deal about Anton dressing up?
That was the night of Anton.
Yeah.
That night, so many little segments. Each one could have been in the movie.
Yeah.
Each one was entertaining in itself.
What was the deal with Anton?
Well, he was walking in, and he was walking out. I was walking in. So I was walking towards the stage. He was walking towards the door. I was going towards the backstage, and I saw him walking in, and he's like all in this bondage gear. He's like dressed all punked out, like he should have been in Social Distortion show or something. You know, like. So I was just like, okay, so here's this dude. So I'm gonna avoid him. Cause like I was all geared out with my turtleneck and my bootcut jeans, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was like. Go around punk rocker. I don't care if it's Anton or not, you know. I can't be seen with this person, you know. With my cowboy boots on. He has many Dr. Martin on.
Yeah.
So I make it backstage and I just kinda just did a view line around him or whatever.
Yeah.
And vila or whatever they call it. Beeline around him. I don't know what that means, but I just made my way around that situation, and I got backstage without any problem as usual, because you know I was in a high-profile gig and Dave was walking towards me, and I was like, I didn't know it was him. And I was just like, there's some hipster walking towards me.
Yeah.
It's a little brown Mexican guy or something. I didn't know who he was, you know. Some little brown guy was walking towards me, and I didn't know who he was, but he was like smiling at me like this.
Yeah.
You know, give me this weird smile, and I was just like.
This was before the kind of confrontation over the clothes or after it?
Way before. Way before.
The same night?
Same night of just what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I was just like walking up to him. He was just like smiling at me. And I was like first thing I looked at him was his energy, you know, because I didn't look at him. I just gestured towards, you know, like you just kind of peripheral gesture towards him, and I was just sort of just picking up who this person was coming towards, and I was just like kind of doing the same thing I was doing with Anton with his energy.
Right.
Like, no, I can't see any of that. I gotta go backstage and hang out with the Tide. But little did I know it was Dave, and then I kind of just brushed him off. I was just kind of like, he was smiling, I kind of smiled, like, okay. And then right at the last second, I like, hey, he kind of looks like he could be cool enough to be in a band with. and then I just kind of said, oh well, I gotta go backstage. You know, like I can't deal with this hipster. So I got, you know, I see, and then he ends up coming backstage, and it was Dave, and I just felt so stupid. Not stupid, but I just felt like almost. I was like, I got my hands caught in the cookie jar of being snobby. because I got caught. I mean, I got like I was being snobby, but to the wrong person. Right. like. Because then, you know, it was ridiculous because then I had to change my attitude towards him. Right. I got there, I was like, oh, hey, now I know you. And I wasn't like being like brushing him off. I was trying to bring him in. Yeah. And he wasn't having it. He was all, like, he was all bitter. Because he just gotten snubbed. Yeah. So he was giving Chris a hard time. Like, you know, it's kind of like this LA snidism that we were talking about. Like, that kind of like, you know, we said they probably do it to each other. Yeah. Because he had an ego issue. Because he was like, you know, kind of felt like had an inferior complex. Because the other guys hadn't gotten messed with, but he just got messed with. He was started messing with Chris, and I was just looking at him, and he was just kind of doing this pecking order thing. It was such bullshit, and I was just like, oh my god, like he was just vibing him because he was kind of lit, you know, like he was hot. So he was going like this, you know, on him, you know, and I was just like he was on him. Like Chris is the guitarist or something. He's like, Chris, Chris, kind of like nodding him towards like, come on, it's you, you're up, you're on, you know, you're the one, you know, like kind of probably what Crosby is doing to Gene. Yeah. Exactly like the jazzy browbeating that Jim Dixon talked about in the Byrds, Timeless Flight. Right. So like, that's why, you know, we were able to just get to a higher plane because we were able to just not stoop this at like petty levels of bickering. Right. Like we bickered, but we didn't even have to go to like the I don't know. Well, but so anyway, it was just crazy to watch. We never even got to that level of just sort of like, you know. We just walk away. Well, no, we would have stupid petty arguments and stuff, but it wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't this sort of like manipulative sort of like I'm gonna really just sort of. I'm really gonna try because like I think the more people in the band, the harder it is politically. Yeah. So we never had to struggle with it because it was just you and I. But when there's all these other forces, it might have gotten crazier maybe. But maybe probably not that bad. But he was really and Chris.
How did he take it?
Was getting his feelings hurt. I mean, he was started just like going like looking at me like. Why is he doing this? Why is he being, like just being uncomfortable about it? You know, and it was so awkward, and I was like so like, and it was an exact. It was direct effect of what happened. What happened
with you and him?
Because of what happened with him and I.
Yeah.
So I'd seen that happen before. Like I was working at this restaurant, and some waitress lady was being mean to this big oaf that I had to work with back in the kitchen. And he came back out and took it on me.
Right.
You know? Like, it's just sort of like...
transfer of energy.
What do they call it? Domino theory, or like,
Domino
you know,
effect.
cause and effect or whatever. So anyway, what?
Yeah, domino effect. And
Yeah. So it's just sort of a trickle down theory or whatever. So I was just like, looking at Chris, just like, this is such bullshit. like Dave is being such a twerp right now because he just.
So you remember when we went over to the House of Blues that first time we ever saw Beachwood Sparks, and I had been emailing Brent back and forth a few times, and
I gotta put the mats away, so just keep talking.
Yeah, and so he was gonna get us in, but I guess he forgot or whatever. And,
right, yeah, they blew us off backstage, which is classic rockstar moves. Wannabe rockstar move, you know?
Well, I think it was funny.
Yeah.
You know, before the show, Brent was nice. We talked to him, and we talked to, I think, Aaron, right? Didn't we? Before the show?
No, I don't remember talking to Aaron. I remember talking to Brent.
Yeah. Well, I think Aaron, like, we tried to sneak in after, you know, remember they were on their last song?
Yeah, we tried to get in through the backstage.
And then some security people got us, and then by that time, Aaron came through the door, and he said, "Yeah, they're with us."
Cool.
So he spotted us.
That's cool. Let's see, you should be taping this.
Yeah, I'm taping it.
Oh, you are cool, killer.
So he got us in, and we hung out.
That's sick. I wish you could bring the tape recorder in the kitchen, because I got a restricted map.
Let's put batteries.
Drug, basically. You might as well be doing, you know, some powdered, you know.
Yeah.
Hard drug.
So yeah, it was pretty funny, you know,
Well,
paranoid Jim and
what
driving.
was it like? What was it like the time of in the summer when during that photo of you where you're playing? I think you're playing the Guild 12.
Oh, that was, you know, like
with
at a
the
party.
blue polyester shirt. Yeah, was that a 4th of July party?
Yeah, that was
Orange
my
County?
friend Jolie.
Oh, okay.
The
So
one
that wasn't Rob Campanella and all those guys
No.
down in Orange County, because they hung out in Huntington Beach.
Did they?
Yeah, so I thought that for some reason you were hooking up with them in Orange County.
No.
But that was your other friend.
But I did go to Rob one time on I think it was some holiday. I think it was Labor Day or July 4th or some kind of day where Rob at their house, you've been there.
Yeah.
They had some backyard party, and you know the Brian Jonestown was playing in the backyard, and the Tide was playing, and my brother went with me.
Wow.
And Cliff was there, all the people,
All the hipsters.
and
Wow.
and it was just really cool, you know.
That is. It's super cool.
And I remember,
Like, I was probably sitting alone in my place at the time.
your Santa Ana
Yeah.
place.
You know, I get a six pack of good beer from Whole Foods, and I just drink some beers and get some pot, and I just hang out and play guitar. And I just play guitar. I was just working on my chops that whole time. I knew I had to get better as a guitar player.
Yeah.
Once we stopped jamming together, but I was like, my guitar playing has only gotten to a point that, you know, I feel like I need to progress. So I really just took all that time to focus on practicing and and also I just felt like I was sort of hiding away from the world because I had just gotten divorced. And so I was just sort of, you know, I didn't know what to do because I'd just been with you guys in this sort of rough and rowdy party scene. So I was just sort of withdrawn from the world.
Right. I remember you were saying that you had your Johnny Rogan book.
How many tortillas do you want?
I guess 2. You had your Johnny Rogan book, and you said, like, you know, these are my friends. You know, you look over at your friends, you know, the Byrds.
That's so funny because, like, you reflect your surroundings.
Yeah.
And what happens is, like, if you're around a lot of weird people, you're gonna start looking weird. But what I said to myself is, I'm just gonna have these pictures of the Byrds in the early era, 1965, with their Beatles cuts, and you know, like lots of just flowing hair and good clothes, and I'm just gonna reflect that. Yeah. And that's what you know, like when you have your friends, you reflect what kind of energy they put off, and so I was just trying to emulate the Byrds as much as possible.
Right. And that was our manual.
They were my friends. Right. They are my friends.
You remember when we were auditioning the people, and it was kind of an inside joke to require them to read the Johnny Rogan books, you know, before, you know, we quiz you on the
prerequisite.
We quiz you on the Johnny Rogan book when you come in for the interview.
Required course reading.
That was funny.
It is.
And, yeah, we just had so many freaks, you know, come through that thing.
What was that guy's name? Club.
What's that? Are you talking about?
We had a guy named Earl Glubb or something.
Oh yeah, right. Wait a second. Let me remember his name. I can remember it.
He always used to say it so funny. It was like.
I'd have to think for a minute. He kept saying that. What, he knew Gene Clark, or what was his whole story? Like he had recorded with him or something?
Was that what it was? Everybody had their little claim to fame.
Uh-huh.
Their own little 15 minutes of fame. Earl Klug.
Doug Klug.
Doug Klug. Doug Klug. It's so cool, I remembered it on tape.
Yeah.
Remembered forever, Doug Klug.
Yeah, he's down in history. Yeah, we had like a recording session with that guy. Remember that? He was playing on the tablets, and we mic'd it up and put these effects.
Who was the guy that started playing on the upside down chair or table or something? White cap. Somebody wore a white cap and started playing on a. Oh, grabbed an ashtray and started playing it upside down. Or
no, it was a coaster.
Coaster.
The guy didn't have a pick. He was playing on my bass.
Yeah, it wasn't drums. It was guitar. Right?
Yeah, and I just found him walking along the street. You know, he saw me with my guitar and started talking to me. And then like, oh yeah, I play bass, but I don't have a bass. But
you use a coaster.
You can use a coaster, you know.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think he was a little weeded out or something. He was kind of odd.
Yeah.
But,
I can't stand when you have to just deal with these like Hollywood freaks, and we were just like, they were just like, just trusting that these people weren't gonna, you know, bring in some disease or kill us or something. Right. You know, I mean, like, God, these people who are these people, like, you know, it wasn't that bad, but it was that bad.
Well,
it was like they were just not. They were all.
Remember,
none of them were right. You know, they were all off.
You remember the biker gang, and they wanted to keep the advertisement that we put up. You know, the kind of ad thing we put.
They like the Byrds logo.
Yeah.
They didn't like us. They just wanted the logo.
Right. Yeah, they
weren't worthy of Ragas company. They got kicked out.
They didn't even play. You said, no, guys, you're not going to play.
They no shake. They no get handshake.
That was hilarious. Yeah, the guy was talking how he had some connection to Metallica and some kind of thing like that.
And then we told him that he was too old, and then he got all his feelings hurt.
Yeah.
And his friend said, well, no, you're too old. And then so he said, well, I gotta just play one last song. It's Stephen Stills.
Didn't I say, okay, do it or something?
Yeah, we let him play a song, but then kind of like he was doing it to sort of try to bust a move on us.
Yeah.
In a way of saying, well, Stephen Stills was more successful than Roger McGuinn.
Right.
And that's how I'm going to feel better about this situation by putting that in your face.
Yeah.
That somebody's more successful than your dad. Basically.
Yeah, well.
But I don't know, that's arguable because you know, other people would argue that Stephen Stills wasn't as influential as Roger. You know,
Yeah,
Roger did all the Raga rock and the space rock and the philosophy rock. And
yeah, I mean, I would say Roger's more influential.
I think he is. I mean, Stephen Stills has a Roger McGuinn 12, an RM12.
Does he?
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't think Roger has a Steve. Has
Does
a
Steve have
Steve,
his own?
Stephen Stills Martin.
Right.
Because Steve has his own Martin.
Uh-huh.
So that says a lot, you know?
Yeah.
You know, he has his signature guitar. I mean, that's huge.
That's good stuff.
And David Crosby was giving Roger a hard time at the end era of the Byrds, right when he started hanging out with Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah, I
And
remember that.
Roger walked in, and David said, "Can you?" Stephen was playing some blues licks, and David said, "Can you do that?" And Roger said, "No, I can't do this kind of blues licks."
Right, right.
So David ran off with the Buffalo Springfield and got fired from the Byrds. They drove up in their Porsches.
Yeah.
And fired him, but Jim Dixon said that they had no reason to do that because they had no legal authority to fire David Crosby.
Right. Who
They
could?
had Roger
They're all
and
equal.
Chris, there was no legal angle they could fire David Crosby. There's nothing in the contract that stipulated that they could fire David Crosby.
Right.
So they had no power to do that. But he didn't know that, so he just went along with it. Crosby went along with getting fired. Like he could have said, "No, you can't do that."
Yeah.
And he would have if he knew better. Like if he was smart enough. That was cool because Jim was able to one up Crosby. Because Crosby's always trying to be smarter than everyone else.
Right.
Like he was the guy with the funniest thing to say, or the.
Well, Crosby was more kind of moody, I guess.
Crosby was moody. Gene Clark was the moodiest.
Yeah.
Crosby is more of a really self-centered, self-secure guy.
Mm-hmm.
Self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Just emulating from him.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, he had tons of self-confidence. And so that's why, little runt like him could get chicks. Because chicks like guys that are just know what, take control of the situation.
Uh-huh.
Like he knew what to say, what to do. He was just totally, like,
And how was
had tons of confidence.
How was your father in dealing with Hollywood types, way back then? Was he kind of aloof, or?
Well, the way he would deal with it was he wouldn't deal with it. I think he kind of took the whole Bob Dylan slant, which is, if I don't like you, I'm not going to deal with you. And so what he did was he decided he wasn't going to like anybody. And so he kind of would just go to the show, do his little thing, and not schmooze or anything. He wouldn't socialize or anything. He'd just show up for a little time slot and then take off.
Uh-huh.
And he liked to do that at the airport too. He didn't like to wait 2 hours like this. He'd get there in advance. He would just like to show up right when the plane was leaving.
Yeah.
So there was no time to hang out and stare at each other. Like he didn't like getting stared at in the waiting room. And I think he just liked to walk on the plane and go. So it was sort of just like no. He didn't like to hang out and kind of do a lot of socializing because it gets. You know how people are.
Mm-hmm.
They get rude and snotty, and he didn't want to put up with that, But I think also he was probably rude and snotty, and he was just putting off airs in a way. I think that's what was going on. Do you want some orange juice?
Sure.
So, can you still have bacon?
Sure, I can have it.
Because they don't usually have bacon with huevos rancheros. They usually have chorizo. But we don't have chorizo. So you have to have bacon.
Okay.
Have you ever had chorizo?
I think so, yeah.
It's like Mexican sausage. I don't know. I actually don't think they really have that with huevos rancheros. I think it's mostly just they don't do. It's like a meatless thing.
Is it?
So you can just have bacon. That'll be
That's cool. What did you put in it?
What?
What you're making.
I haven't really made it yet.
Uh-huh.
Basically the ingredients are eggs, pork, tortillas, cheese, and salsa.
Mm-hmm. What kind of cheese is it?
I'm just using like a powderized Parmesan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Oh God, I'm so hungry. So anyway, all right, hands are clean. Coffee going.
Cool. Yeah, we definitely should do a kind of a Whole Foods video.
I know, we spent our share of time there.
Yeah. That was our spot. I drive down to Santa Ana, pick you up, then we go straight to the Whole Foods, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Then we eat, then we get back. Cool.
It's looking fun for cream.
Yeah.
Cricket bar with like tons of people there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one where everybody's screaming.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just so good that I had the mind to bring that, tape recorder along and
yeah, you were taking the lead because I guess you got to read up on Roger a little bit and how he was all into gadgets and being technologically advanced, and so you.
Yeah, well, I've always been into the tape recorder. I don't know if it was because of reading Roger stuff, but just as a kid, I'd just sit in front of the tape recorder for hours and hours, just running around the room and just singing in it and just...
Well, how validated you must have felt when we got together and you found out that Roger was like a gadget freak and just like a media hoarder, and you're basically just kind of doing the same thing he did.
Mm-hmm.
Without even knowing it. I mean, you're sort of, it was all about just sort of, recording with the 4-track and getting us up on the computer so alt music Byrds people could hear the Ragas.
Yeah.
I mean, we were up on the computer in the early days.
Yeah. And then I remember even before I went to California, like, one of the first songs I downloaded ever, this was like, 97 or something. It was that John the Revelator song. You know that song?
Yeah, Roger and Camilla did on Fulton.
It's just so weird. I never listened to the Byrds really. I knew the basic songs, but, never, ever.
Oh, wait, you were listening to John the Revelator before we met? Yeah. But was that Roger?
Yeah, that was back in text on mp3.com or something like that.
So like Roger was kind of at the top of his game in those days. He was like super, like he was right about to get that huge write-up in Uncut magazine about the Byrds. So I mean that was before even that. It was the calm before the storm. Roger is getting ready to have this huge. We were doing this right at the right time because Roger was getting ready to have his huge, kind of like revival, where they just sort of brought up all this stuff. They interviewed David Crosby, Chris Hillman, and Roger in Vanity Fair, and that's when I was working at Rickenbacker, and basically what happened was. They came in town and they played the Santa Monica Civic, and I mean they had this huge Byrds reunion. still, or no?
Well, I'm kind of getting a stomach ache from something. I don't know.
Are you full? Oh, maybe
Yeah.
it was the tomatoes acidic from the tomato.
Maybe I'm all right. It's just kind of.
No bacon.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. We'll save it for a BLT.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I remember when I was at the music school that, some of these Byrds albums were being reissued with the bonus tracks.
Yeah.
So it's like right at the time,
And so it was it's amazing because we really had the height of Roger's popularity on our side.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just almost riding on his coattails in a way, but we couldn't help it. It was just he was so huge at the time.
Yeah.
He's still huge, but it's not like people kind of were just rediscovering the Byrds.
Right.
How influential they were. Now everybody has read. He's done a million interviews since then, and everybody's read. Everybody's read the interviews.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's kind of cooled down. But what it used to be was this huge, Byrds revival where everybody is just sort of celebrating, talking to Brent and asking what his favorite Byrds album was, and he didn't have any hesitation in saying Notorious Byrd Brothers.
Right.
Sort of like that. Like everybody's just sort of celebrating how great the Byrds really were and how kind of overrated the Beatles were in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Beatles were just sort of, they kind of had their day already. Like their thing, their niche was saying, hey, rock and roll can be sophisticated.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to just be hey bop-a-loo bop,
Right.
So the sophisticated thing in those days was to have long hair. So they had these mop tops that they saw everybody wearing in Hamburg, and then so after that was kind of like their one thing that they could say, and then everything else they said was just sort of like they were just following suit. Like the Byrds were the ones that turned the Beatles under Ravi Shankar.
Right. Yeah.
And David Crosby turned the Beatles under Ravi Shankar, and so it's almost like the Byrds' turn to say something.
Yeah. Well,
And
the
what
Beatles.
the Byrds said was sort of like, okay, well you could be sophisticated with rock, but now you can be spiritual with rock. So the Byrds brought in the whole like the almost like acid trippy feeling of like being in an auditorium with God or something.
Right.
And then that's sort of like where the Grateful Dead came in, because they were able to really harness that whole being in an auditorium with God feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody's doing drugs and there's this whole like vibe, I mean, it was like this whole like, just total spiritual energy. So, and the Beatles were just kind of following after that. They were doing Sgt. Pepper's, and then they were doing basically American rock when it came down to Abbey Road. They're basically just doing R&B,
Yeah.
like all those licks, George Harrison licking on the Les Pauls or whatever, Fenders. So. Okay. So.
I mean, the Byrds were always spiritual. Even they did that turn thing right from the beginning.
Tambourine Man was the first spiritual reference, and
Right.
Roger said he was trying to talk to God when he was doing the lyrics for it. So it was sort of like
Just like his, going God's way, God's will, and that sort of thing. Take him wherever they go.
Just doing something new with music that hadn't been done before, and so now that was the Byrds' time to kind of, and the way they were going to do it was they're kind of doing a nod to George Harrison's Rickenbacker playing, and then adding a whole new element, which is this sort of beatnik spirituality that had been going around since the 50s. Mm-hmm. Kerouac and Big Sur, and the whole San Francisco hippie beatnik scene was really pretty much happening in those days. The Beatles were the ones that were just able to put a soundtrack to it first.
Right, they're the ones that got credit, I guess.
Well, they were the first ones that got on the scene on the radio with pot-friendly music.
Right.
But they hadn't even gotten high yet, because Bob Dylan thought said I get high, but they're really saying I can't hide.
Right. Yeah, I read
Bob
that.
Dylan hung out with them and got on high for the first time.
Right.
So the Beatles are really getting schooled by the Americans.
Right.
On spirituality.
Uh-huh.
The Americans were more sophisticated than the English spiritually, because they just had all this sunny climate and all these like spiritual gurus like Ken Kesey and Timothy Leary. So it was just sort of like the super high psychedelic heyday that I'm sure started with the beatniks and this whole like after the war jubilee kind of vibe, after the World War II thing, or I don't know. So it just seemed like so then the Beatles hit the scene. And everybody was into it. Ken Kesey got in the bus, and they all went to see the Beatles play in San Francisco. Huh. And so that whole scene was already happening, but they were all at the time, like Jerry and all those guys. They were into jug band music.
Right.
So they were playing like
branched out yet.
They were playing folk and jug band music. So cool. I think America and England kind of have been bouncing back and forth off of each other in a good, positive, healthy way. Where if one didn't have the other, it could have happened. None of it could have happened.
No.
So it was almost like you needed one to have the other.
Well, didn't the Byrds and the Beatles have the same press guy?
Derek Taylor.
And he was like bringing back and forth messages or tapes.
Yeah, he would reiterate messages and stuff.
And what? How did it work?
He said, if anyone doesn't like the Byrds, they need to have their head examined.
Yeah. Was it that Derek took If I Needed Someone to Roger, or was it the other way around?
I think what it was what wasn't it? The Bells of Rhymney?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it was Roger saying Bells of Rhymney
was sent over to the
Beatles.
Yeah,
and then George answered back
with If I Needed Someone.
With If I Needed Someone.